Hi guys, Knight here, and we're gonna talk about a convoluted subject today. We're gonna talk about Monster Fusion, and there's a lot of misconception about Monster Fusion, so we're gonna get through these and how it actually really works today. And by the end of it, if you should know much more about it and how to use it, even in the speedrun setting. This is the way to go. So here we start. Fusing monster. Well, all these monsters are fresh from eggs, so they are all level 1 and hasn't been tampered with in any way. So we have a selection of 5 monsters I brought into the tower, and there's a lot of situation I want to talk about. So I have special monsters to make sure that I cover as much as I can in these setups. So some monsters have innate spells, some don't. So I've picked up Arachne and Nuyel, which have Demirror and Deheal, respectively. And I've brought 3 that doesn't have any spells. So Naples, Maximum, and Garuda doesn't have spells. In this game, every monster has a spell. It's either innate, so like Nuyel and Aran, or it's either dormant, like Naples, Maximum, and Garuda. When a spell is dormant, then you don't have access to it because it's dormant. And the way to bring it into action is actually through Monster Fusion. So to awaken a dormant spell, you need to fuse 2 monsters that neither of which has a spell. So let's do it with Maximum here. And let's do it with Garuda. So let's go, guys. So we will touch about how fusion works actually right away to make sure that you understand everything else. So when fusing 2 monsters, one of them will win the fusion. And to determine which monster will win the fusion, there has been a lot of theory out there on how it works, but it's really simple, really. So if one monster has at least 1 experience point more than the other, so it's not a level difference, it's 1 experience point difference. It will always win the fusion. Always, 100% of the time. You're 1 XP more than your opponent. Well, the other monster, you win. That's it. Simple. But if they are the same level and exactly the same experience, in this case 0, which is what you can manipulate that very easily by hatching both eggs at the same time so they have the same experience. It has nothing to do with the genus, the power level, whatever. It doesn't change anything. The stats, it's actually movement based. So here I have Maximum winning this actual fusion. I do 1 step, fuse, and then Garuda wins the fusion, and then 1 step, and then fuse, and then Maximum again. So it's really simple. Really, you just need to, if you don't get the result you want and they have the same experience, move a step once. So really easy. Though, it's still true that genus comes in during fusion. The resulting monster's genus is going to be the winning genus in terms of the triangle. So if you fuse 2 fire monsters, it's going to stay fire. But in this situation, we're fusing a fire and a wind monster, so fire wins. And the Maximum is going to stay fire. But if I move a step once, then Garuda is going to be winning because it changes every square, but that Garuda is still going to be fire. So this is really important you get that. So yeah. You can see that the resulting monster is going to have a spell. So in the case of Garuda, it's going to have Lie Down, and in the case of Maximum, it's going to have Breath. There is a difference between those 2 spells, is one of them is in its innate element and the other one isn't. So I know I used innate in 2 different ways here, but then an innate spell is a spell you have without having to fuse. And a spell in its innate element is that it means Breath is a fire spell. And right now the monster is also fire. So you can see the fire spell design on the left side of Breath, like the fire thing, is also in a brown square or beige square. Same as on the left side of Maximum's name. That beige square is actually really important. It means that the spell is in its innate element. If I do 1 square movement and fuse again, then you see that Lie Down is actually the same fire design, but then the beige square is not there anymore. It's still on the left side of its name, but it's not on the left side of the spell's name. What does that mean? Okay, So when a spell is not, well, La Down is actually Low Down, the same spell you'd get from a clown. And Low Down is a wind spell. So La Down is the fire version of it, and it's only gonna level up and get stronger if there's a beige square behind the name of the spell, the actual elemental design. So if I wanted to make sure this spell levels up, I would need to turn that Garuda back down to Wind Elemental. As soon as it would turn back into Wind, then the beige square would reappear on the left side of Lowdown. It would be called Lowdown again. And then it would start to level up at 1 level up per level of the monster. And one thing that some people might not seem to know too is if your Garuda would be level 20, but the spell would be level 1 because it was outside of its innate element for so long. You brought it back into its element, so it's going to start to level back up again. If it is not up to par, so if it needs to recover a little bit, then it's going to be leveling up twice per level. So if you have Garuda at level 20 and this spell is level 1, when Garuda hits level 21, so it level once, the spell is going to level up twice, so it's going to level up to 3 instead of 2, because it needs to catch up, so that's how it works. But once it's 1 away from the actual level, it's going to start leveling up once every level again. I know this is a lot of information, but yeah, a spell innate, the things you need to remember is only that a spell outside of its innate element is not going to level up, and a quick way to know if a spell is in or out of its innate element is there a beige square behind the elemental design, and this is, you can quickly see that. So here, it's outside of its element, it's not going to level up. Doesn't mean it's bad though, but it's not going to level up. And in this situation, it is inside element, so that maximum breadth is going to level up each and every time. This maximum is going to level up, so that's a good thing we can do. Okay, so let's select other monster and talk about something else. So Garuda. Actually, let's do this quicker. There we go. So select this. Let's do Maximum and Garuda. Alright. Maximum and Nuyel. So some monsters have what we call traits. And traits are really interesting stuff. This Nuyel actually has only 1 trait. And some people will say it has 2, but it's actually not true. It has 1 trait. And the trait is called Poison Proof. And what Poison Proof does, it means, well, self-explanatory, you cannot get poisoned. So that Nuyel is immune to being poisoned. If it walks on a poison trap, it will always fail. Interesting, that's a good trait, alright. Maybe I want this maximum to be poison proof, and actually I can. So the way to do this is to fuse these guys, and of course water is gonna win in this triangle, so it actually gonna become a water monster. One other thing we should point out here is that maximum is not gonna learn breath, and the reason why that is that to awaken a dormant spell, you need to fuse 2 monsters that don't have a spell. And in this situation, Nuyel's got the heal. And so it's gonna pass the heal instead of awakening the dormant spell on maximum sides. The interesting part of this is that if that maximum stays water, let's say that was my plan all along, then instead of getting Dia Breath, which would be the water version of Breath, which would not level up because it would be outside of its innate element, then I would have the heal, which is actually a water spell, and it will level up with my maximum each and every level. So that might be one way to make a spellcaster maximum. That I want to be water, well, that's one way to do this. But let's go back to where we were. So through this fusion, I can actually 100% send the poison proof talent or the poison proof trait into the maximum. Through this fusion, this maximum is going to be immune to poison. So you might say, oh man, this is really powerful. I can build the perfect monster with all the traits in the game and it's going to become unkillable. Well, there is a limitation here, and we're going to talk about that. People will tell you probably that you can have 2 traits, and that is not exactly true. It is true, but it is also really false. The number of trait a monster can have is not 2. It can learn 1 extra one. And so the only situation in which a monster can have 2 monster traits is when it innately knows one. Oh, I mean using innately a lot here. But when it knows one. So let's say this maximum doesn't have a trait. Maximum does not have a trait. And so it's impossible for it to have 2 traits. By fusing this new yell inside of it, it's gonna learn poison proof. But then this extra one is always gonna get rewritten with the new one. So I have an Arachne with me. This Arachne's got the attack up or the attack increase trait. And if I was to fuse these 2 guys together, it would learn poison proof. And then if I had the Arachne into fusion, it would remove poison proof and replace it with attack up. With the monster I have right now, I could do a monster with 2 traits, and it would be to fuse Nuyel and Arachne together, and then the resulting monster would have both attack increase and poison proof, because they already have one and they can learn an extra one. So that's one way to do this. But then again, you guys might say, well, Nuyel actually has got 2 traits. There's another one. It actually recover 50 MP each and every time it eats anything that is a seed, anything that is an herb, and everything that is a fruit. And you would be right. It does do that, but this is not a trait. It is, well, there's no name in the game for it actually, but you could call it a, I don't know, eating habits. I don't know how to call this. This is not a trait, and so it cannot be passed on. The only way you can use the eating habits of a Nuyel, there's also pickets and dragons that have strange eating habits. The only way you can use it is if the winning monster of a fusion is a Nuyel. So I could reverse that fusion by doing this. This guy, so it won't have change at all actually. The resulting fusion, this fusion would be 100% useless. Maximum is not going to pass its element, it's not going to pass a trait because it doesn't know one, it's not going to awaken a spell because Nuyel already knows one, it's not going to change its HP attack, or its MP in any way, so this fusion would be useless. But at the end, even if it was for X or Y reason, maybe I would have teached it Breath, and then I would need to pass it to this Nuyel. Well, the resulting fusion would know the eating habit because the resulting monster would be a Nuyel. If I do this, these monsters don't have a eating habit. This is not passed through fusion, and it's really important to know. The only way to get a monster with the eating habit is if you have actually a dragon or a kid, a picket, or a Nuyel as a winning monster out of a fusion. So there's always that. What else can we talk about? Okay, let's do this then. Go. Put these guys back together. So let's use this Arachne here. We might want to touch that. Most people would know about this, but maybe they wouldn't. Here we have an Arachne, and this Arachne's attack is written 6 out of 12. So the doubling attack traits and the doubling defense trait from blocks, it actually only double your max attack and not your actual attack. So you need to recover it through using a water crystal or a cure-all herb or a Azak herb. These are the 3 items you can use to recover that. And once it's recovered, you do get the benefit from double attack. Each and every time it's going to level up, it's going to win 1 attack out of 2. So you still need to recover it once in a while to make sure you actually get the benefits from this. Then let's say we give this Naplas out. So Naplas has got the double HP trait. So it's also 11 out of 22, but then skipping turns would recover HP, so it's actually way easier to profit from this. So if I fuse these 2 guys together, so not only is it gonna have 6 attack out of 12, but it's also gonna have 9 HP out of 22. Or I could do the opposite again. These 2 traits would work together. So that's what I was talking about earlier, is that you actually do get both trait as long as the monster that's one of the monster in the fusion, the one winning, already have one, and then gain another one from somebody else. The double HP from the Naplas will never get overridden because it's its base trait, and it can have one extra one through fusion. But I guess it's clear now. People will probably get that. Okay, so what do we want to do here? Maybe we want to fuse these two guys and result in having a monster that is an A+, have a lot of HP, a lot of attack, and learn the mirror. Let's do that. Let's do it for fun. So we've passed the spell. We didn't awaken a dormant spell. This is the actual innate spell from the Arachne. We passed it into the Naples. And then this Naples has got a lot of HP and a lot of attack. So could we do something else to make it better? Probably. Let's bring this Garuda back in. And let's see what happens. Let's just have some fun here. So let's fuse this two guy. Okay, so well, maybe we want to make one step here. That's what we're gonna do. Alright. So what would happen if we fuse these two guys together? Well, if you know me in any way, you know that Deo Mirror is definitely my go-to spell, or Deo Wall. But what does actually happen through this fusion? A lot of stuff. First, the spell The Mirror will change elements because, even though it's actually Naplas that eats Garuda in this situation, there's still the wind genus triangle that goes into effect, and winds beat water, so Naplas has been fire, turned into water, and then turned into wind. And it also learned Deo Mirror during last fusion, and then it's going to change elements again because of wind beating water. It still has its HP increase trait, but actually the attack increase trait is going to be removed. Even though Garuda doesn't have a trait, it's still going to kick out and replace the double attack trait by nothing. So you cannot just do extra fusions and still keep your 2-1s by using monster that doesn't have a trait. It's still gonna replace the one that's in place there. And so you want to make sure that the final fusion you do to make your monster exactly as you want it is the one that's gonna introduce the new trait. So that's what you want to do last. But yeah, this is kind of a cool setup, but we're not gonna do that right now. We don't want to necessarily lose the double attack trait for no reason. Also, you might have seen something weird happen, and I haven't talked about it, but I've seen many people do that into tournaments and actually shoot themselves in the foot. Why does Naples right now have 78 mana out of 80? Is it because I passed so many turns that it actually lost 2 mana? No. The final fusion of monsters is always gonna have an average amount of mana equal to this mana plus this mana divided by 2. This is gonna be the resulting mana as well, or max MP if max MP is lower, but then again. So I fused a Naples which has 80 MP with a Arachne which has 70, and so it resulted in a Naples with 75. And then I'm doing it again with a monster which has 80 and 75, and then it rounds up the 77.5 into 78 here. So some people do fuse a lot with Palumpa. I actually do it too, but you need to know that Palumpa with its 40 MP is gonna make the monster that you fuse into it start with a very low MP count. They're probably around 60 or 70, 60 or 65. And so you need to know that you're actually making the resulting monster start with a lower amount of MP. And if you fuse with a Palumpa, then you don't have the Palumpa egg to recover MP anymore. So it might bite you in the ass in the end, but just know it exists. Know it's in there. Alright. So now with extra spell. Okay, so let's bring back this new yell again. Garuda, go back in the bag. And select, let's do new yell here. It changes the heal. Alright, that's what it does. Let's do fuse again. And let's see. Okay, so the resulting monster is gonna have both spells. So again, I can move and change the fusion. But then we have 2 spells. There is actually 3 slots in the bottom box. Below your monster card, but only 2 spells can be learned through fusion. So if I fuse these 2 guys together, I would get a second spell, but then I couldn't get a third spell. And there's a lot of reason for that. There might be a way to circumvent that, but through fusion, this is the maximum number of spell you can get, only 2. So it's not really important which one wins in this situation. Well, it might be depending on what I want, but just only for spell learning. You can absolutely do that in any situation. If each monster's got a spell, the resulting monster is gonna have 2 spells. So that's really simple here. Some spells might be overridden, sometimes it doesn't. Just experience with that, but just know that it actually do this. This spell doesn't have... They will end up being of the same element of the monster, but it don't have to be both innate or both not innate. You could have a De-Heal and then a Dia Breath. And the Dia Breath is going to be outside of element and won't level up when the monster level up, and the De-Heal will, if the monster is water. Both spell can be whatever. You can just fuse and do things to your heart content, like having Lowdown and Deo Mirror on a wind monster is really interesting because the Lowdown is gonna level up and get stronger, and the Deo Mirror doesn't need to be strong to be relevant. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do here through fusion. Is there something else that I want to talk about? I think this is pretty much it. So yeah, thank you guys for bearing down with this very long video. I talked a lot, but there's a lot of things to talk about fusion here. And yeah, I think you guys have all the tools you need to make your monster stronger and the perfect beast you might want to get. I might want to end with this though. I talked about the 3rd slot like in the monster card. It is actually generally used to, if you use a Leva Fruit, to make sure that your monster wins the next fusion. Oh, I haven't talked about Leva Fruit. There is a fruit in the game that is called the Leva Fruit, and if you feed it to a monster, it will win the next monster fusion no matter if there is an XP difference, level difference, or anything. If that monster has a Leva Fruit, it will win the fusion. There are exceptions. If both monsters have a Leva Fruit, then it starts going back into the normal fusion rules, and no matter how many Leva Fruit you feed to your pet, it will never win a fusion against CUNY. CUNY always wins its fusion, and iCUNY always loses its fusion, so it's really important to know that. Oh yeah, the 3rd slot also can be used to... this is actually where the troll weapon gets in. So if you have a troll and you want to put a troll bowgun on him, you're going to see spell, and then troll bowgun. This is where it goes. And also you can teach your pets spell using spell balls. So a spell ball with 10 charge, if you feed it to your pet, it's going to learn a spell, and you will actually be able to get a 3rd spell in there if that's really what you want. But other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.